Joining me now is Dong Jun. He is a sports journalist. He knows quite a bit about the Olympics. He was the official commentator at the Beijing Olympics in 2008. He's also co-founder and CEO of EI Asia. That profile on Paul Lambert just kind of shows just how difficult this process is, how much work goes into it. So let's talk about the status of the venues for the 2022 games. It always seems like there's hiccups before or as the games are starting. I remember in Sochi, I think it was the dorms for the athletes. Brazil, it was getting the stadiums ready on time. Where do things stand right now in China, would you say?
Mike, I think the big picture is really not up to people, staff working for the organizing committee at various medium and even lower levels. They just do what they are supposed to do, but it's not up to, themselves, not even their bosses in China, but to the International Olympic Committee to decide the fate of the Winter Olympics, including the nearer, Tokyo Summer Games. But people working for the games are doing what they can. And last week, organizers on various venues in Beijing, Yanqing and Zhangjiakou have made the year-end meeting summarizing what they have done. And obviously, in terms of venue construction, they have pretty much caught up to make up for the time lost during the pandemic, in the first half of the pandemic in China. So now what we gathered is that the venues are pretty much okay, but the things in question are the test events that should be taking place right now, because this is the winter time, and you need this valuable season to test all the facilities in addition to the venue themselves, but also people's professional works, putting together the games and competitions that are unprecedented for most of them.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. I'm going to lean on your historical perspective because you obviously remember the build-up to the 2008 games. And I remember, I think everybody was pretty much blown away. They were very successful. What about the enthusiasm for the games and winter sports in general leading up to these Olympic Games?
Mike, I think I can tell you that the culture, among Chinese people, especially those from urban areas, young people, very enthusiasm about sports, about the Olympics, even for a smaller Olympics like the Winter Games compared to 2008 is completely different now. Both myself and my wife have joined a long list of applying for a position as a volunteer for the Winter Games, but now we have waited for months for the results of our applications, because me as a commentator and my wife was back then a torchbearer runner and also a top partner spokesperson during the Beijing Summer Games. But now we're in, nowhere to secure our position because the competitions among the volunteer applicants are so wide open and fierce, because people's mindset has changed so much. They are really embracing this event, not as an onlooker, an audience or a spectator, but rather they want to be involved personally, and also different from those summer sports. I think China started pretty much like a centralized power winning medals before the entire population get to understand what those Summer Olympic Games and sports are about. But for winter, I think basically the trend is the opposite. People on the grass first participate and practice winter sports before their national athletes can do really well. And this is interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not sure it's going to help you any, but I'll keep my fingers crossed for you and your wife. But let's talk a little bit about COVID's impact. You did earlier, but one would hope that with the rollout of the vaccines, that some of the concerns of today might be easing by the time of the games. What do you expect?
Well, I have quite a high degree of optimism about Beijing and neighboring provinces' efforts and their capability of controlling the most recent sporadic surge in the infection cases here. But, the Olympics is such an international event. It involves participants from athletes to officials to technical staff, and even some, different language speaking volunteers from different countries. So it's not entirely in the control of Beijing to decide what to do next and what we can expect. But I think, China has practiced in basketball and soccer in the past few months of trying to build a bubble, relatively secure and safe for participants in limited numbers. But the Olympics would be too huge event to build a bubble that we can imagine. So let's pray that 2022 will still go ahead as a vaccination year, that we can really put the new variants and strains of the pandemic under control, then we can back to our original schedule, which is already delayed kind of for Tokyo first and then for the Beijing Winter Games.
Dong Jun, always a pleasure talking science.